high expectations about this panel, I guess. Jerome, Christina, and Salia. We're working hard to make possible, provide some solutions to the debate that we're having these days here, and you are sharing here and there all the time, the in and out, talking about the same things. So this is basic because this panel has raised so many expectations. People asking, for example, if it has started already or not. So we are having 3 presentations, 10 minutes each. I would suggest just having the round of comments, suggestion, thinking, or questions for them at the end, so we can maybe wrap up instead of going one after the other. And I think we can start with Jerome. Jerome Barros, actually, for those that you don't know, is a policy officer at Digicent, Digital Health. He's quite involved in the development of the European Health Data Space for secondary use. So Jerome, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Enrique. Thank you for the invitation and give us the opportunity to present the European Health Data Space. So, don't know about the slides.
Slides for Jerome? You can stand back here, I think. That's convenient for you.
So good morning, everyone. So 10 minutes, I'll try to be as brief as I can on the European Data Space and what we are proposing for the use and reuse of health data. So if you move to the next slide. Oh, I do myself. Forgive me. So first, just a brief overview of what actually are we proposing with the European Health Data Space. As you can see here, it is a regulation, and what it proposes are a set of rules. This is what we have included in the legal proposals, but also common standards, a governance, a framework for the reuse, the use and the reuse of health data for care, but also for research, innovation, policymaking, and regulatory purposes. And what it aims to achieve is those three objectives that you see underneath. The first one is to empower individuals to not only have access to their data, but also control it. Two, we really want to create this single market for digital solutions, so for digital product services. And in particular, we're legislating a lot on the electronic health record systems. And finally, and perhaps the most relevant for today, is we are creating a consistent framework for the use of health data for the secondary use that I mentioned here, so research, innovation, policymaking, and regulatory purposes. So in practice, this is what we are aiming to propose. So the overall objective would be this effectiveness of health data. That's what ultimately ought to be achieved. And for this purpose, we do have two main the scope is just say the scope around first the primary use of health data, the use of data for care, and for this, some of the provisions that the key provisions that we are proposing are first empowering the virus control data. What do we mean by that? What we're saying here is that patients should not only have access to their data, they should also control it. By this we mean being able to share this data with healthcare professionals of their choice, editing this data if it is not currently inputted, if information is missing, and importantly as well, restricting access to this data or part of it if it is their choice. So this is what we really view as empowering patients. We also have a set of articles on the standardizations and mandatory certification of electronic health records systems, obviously one of the key resources when it comes to health data. We also have an article looking at the voluntary labeling of wellness app. This is obviously not an emerging field, but a field that is growing and that probably requires some structuring, which is why we propose this labeling of those apps. And finally, we are promoting the electronic health record exchange format because it's the one underpinning the My Health ITU platform, so the platform that is being used for primary use already. When it comes to secondary use, the one of the key initiatives that we are proposing is the establishment of health data access bodies. They would be national health data agencies responsible to provide this access, facilitate this access to health data for the purposes I mentioned before. Finally, we are defining a set of purposes for which this data will be made available. It wouldn't be made available for the sake of it. The idea is really that through those purposes benefiting individuals. We're also setting a series of forbidden purposes, that is, purposes for which data would never be made available, and think of anything that would be detrimental to individuals. Finally, we're also setting a framework for making this data available. So we are proposing data permits. View this almost as a contract that determines what data will be made available, who would have access to this data, where, for how long. The idea is really to formalize this access. And these data would only be made available in secure environments. This is something, as you've seen, is widely promoted and adopted by several initiatives, but it's something we really want to really put in the law to make sure that data is only provided in a secured way. And finally, when it comes to no identification, that is, data that would be made available is either anonymized or pseudonymized, and only anonymized data could be extracted from the secure environment. So this is all the different aspects when it comes to the legal governance, but obviously we have a series of activities around the quality of data. So we are proposing a data quality and utility label to facilitate the identification of relevant data sets and helping researchers understand if indeed these or that data set will be relevant for the purpose that they intend to use it for. We are also developing a new infrastructure for the sections of our data, this health data that is mentioned above. And finally, we also have a series of activities to increase the capacity of member states, making sure that they are ready when the legislation comes into place. And ultimately, here you have an overview of what we aim to achieve really when it comes to citizens mentioned here, also benefiting healthcare professionals, making sure they have access to the data that they need to provide the care uh, that they provide, and ultimately making sure that when this data is reused, it is really to assist better policy making, more research, and also providing the single market dimension here, really a more coherent system for the adoption of such solutions. As mentioned here, we do have this infrastructure in that we are proposing here, and health data access bodies are one of the key tenets of what we're proposing here. Why? They are the entry point, let's just say, for data holders, so that would be making data available once a permit is issued, but also data users, the entry point to which you would go to when you will be making a request. As you can see in the figure, these health data access bodies would be connected with each other, as well as with other relevant organizations, European agencies such as the European Medicine Agency or the ECDC, as well as European over what we call data sharing infrastructures. Think of some of the European research infrastructures that have been mentioned here, for example. And here, I think we just have an overview of what ultimately we're trying to achieve. So first, how can we help researcher to understand what data is available? One, the main goal we want is to have this European datasets catalog to just provide an overview of what data would be possibly available. So if it is not known, if it is not visible, the first step is to make this happen. Finally, it is formalizing how this access will be provided, so helping the researcher understand if this data could be used for their research. And once an application for this accessing this data is made and a permit is issued, that is, if this application was approved, this is where data holders and these health data access bodies come into place by obviously issuing this permit when it comes to the health data access bodies. and then instructing data holders to make the data available to the user. And this access, as mentioned, would be made, this provision would be made in a secure processing environment where the tools and the compute power necessary for this analysis and processing would be enabled. And importantly, we want to make sure that when access to data is given, results are visible to the community as a whole, but importantly to patients to understand what has been done with their health data, which is why this last stage of publishing results and being as transparent as possible when it comes to why was this data made available and what was the outcome. So as mentioned here, we do have a legal proposal. This was submitted in May this year. It is currently being negotiated with the European Parliament and the European Council. But as you can imagine, we just cannot wait until the end of those negotiations, which is why we are already working on the implementation. And one of the key initiatives is the Health Data EU pilot project. So this is a pilot project which started last month. It is led by the Health Data Hub, so the data agencies of France, and involves, you know, the type of partners that you would expect. Other data agencies, obviously, but also research infrastructure such as Elixir, BBMRI. We also have public health institutes such as IX. So as you can see, we try to bring together what we believe are the right people, the right expertise to bring their knowledge on the uses that we intend to facilitate, as well on the reality on the field. These are national agencies that already provide access to data. The idea is that how can we help them to make sure that this Health Data TU infrastructure really is fit for purpose. So we do have a 2 years project, 5 million for the consortium itself and 5 million for the supporting services that will be developed by the European Commission. Think, for example, this European datasets catalog that I mentioned here, as well as anything enabling the infrastructure to work. So the idea is that really this pilot will bring, if not an embryo, an initial infrastructure that could then be scaled up, plus a set of recommendations to member states as to how should this infrastructure look like when it ought to be deployed once the regulation is implemented. Very interestingly is that this will be validated through 5 use cases, and this is where we have the participation of many of our researchers. And this is also, I think, the way we can also ensure this complementarity with other initiatives by not only involving partners that have a foot in both initiatives, as well as understanding the landscape and how can they really complement with other initiatives. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Jerome. Quite in time. Thank you. Now, next speaker is Salia Rinne, Head of eHealth and Aging Policy at DG Connect. Salia, I would like to have you on screen. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for joining.
Very good.
So you have 2 minutes, as I said. I will give a bit warning, kind warning in 2 minutes left. Is that okay with you, Salia?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you. So do you see my slides?
Yes. Yes, we should. Go.
Excellent. So good morning also from Luxembourg and DG Connect. I work in the eHealth Wellbeing and Aging unit of Connect, and when we talk about the topics of today, it has to be said and emphasized that we are constantly working together with Jerome and other colleagues in SANTE Digital Health Unit, and with RTD colleagues, we work constantly together. So it's not that we are sort of proposing things in silos. On the contrary, we are really trying to ensure that there are complementarities and synergies between the different programs and initiatives that our DGs are bringing forward. My topic is about Digital Europe program and how it supports the data strategy and all the different data spaces. And we are now talking about the technological capacities. The idea for the Digital Europe program is to really accelerate the best use of digital technology. So we are talking about deployment of mature technologies. This is not a research program. It's to deploy and make available to companies, to researchers and individuals and everyone in Europe the computational and other capabilities so that we can also be autonomous within the EU and also foster the strategic autonomy in these technologies in Europe. The idea is to have these different capacities supported, such as high performance computing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and importantly also advanced digital skills. These will be rolled out and supported by the European Digital Innovation Hubs that are about to be established in European regions. And the high impact deployments are really the use cases and needs coming from the field, such as in the field of health, which is one of the high impact deployment areas. And with this sort of structure, the idea is really to scale up the essential digital capacities in Europe. When we look at the structure from the point of view of data spaces, there are certain, like a number of data spaces identified in the work program of Digital Europe. One of them is health. There are again these different technological capacities and for example, testing and experimentation facilities for AI that are feeding into all of these or offering their services for all of these data spaces. And there's also a data spaces support center, which has just started. It's a coordination and support action of 14 million. It just started. It looks at the knowledge and, for example, template contracts and different processes that are needed to facilitate unlocking data within different sectors and also across sectors. We have also tools such as EID, e-delivery, e-translation that are developed to support the data spaces. We have AI on demand platform and cloud and edge services on offer. And then the infrastructure is federated when it comes to edge, cloud, and HPC. And there we have platforms, data centers, connectivity that go across these infrastructure components. And as I said, the skills and digital innovation hubs are very important. Also standards, interoperability and portability. And cybersecurity has its own program under digital. So it's also extremely important. Just a glimpse of what was funded in the first 2 years of Digital Europe program. So under artificial intelligence, data and cloud, there were 2 European federated infrastructures that we funded. One of them was on genomic data and another one on cancer imaging data, considering that cancer is one of the flagships and priorities of the current Commission. Cancer imaging project will start in January 23, and the genomics project has started in September or October, just not long ago. Then there is a big testing and experimentation facility for health, which is going to be launched in January 23, 30 million funding from the EU and another 30 million from the consortium. And this step is expected to offer services also for like innovators so that they can go and test their solutions. Then we had other topics such as one on uptake on digital solutions and another one on building an ecosystem for digital twins in healthcare. These were coordination and support actions. And finally, a topic under the cybersecurity program to support also like SMEs and smaller entities in their cybersecurity resilience. Then I will just very briefly go through the cancer images project in principle. So this is about deployment of the infrastructure that we need to link and explore fragmented European data spaces of medical images. The project is also going to work on a business model, advanced tools and capacities, for example, in AI and HPC. And the ultimate aim is, of course, to have more precise and faster clinical decision-making, diagnostics, treatments, and predictive medicine. There's a lot more work going into this project that's not mentioned here, but just to give an overview. And for the genomics, it has also the sort of similar objective when it comes to building the infrastructure to have like harmonized data resources and linked clinical, phenotypic, and other information so that they are securely findable and accessible across national borders. It's going to be a federated network where security and privacy by design will be ensured. So we are talking about data discovery, querying the data, and it really builds on the progress achieved and the agreements made within the 1+ million genomes initiative of member states and a few other European countries. Here, as well as in the cancer imaging project, there is an expectation that the project will engage with patients, health professionals, and also will work on awareness raising. Okay, I have a. Can you still hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, because I have this problem with my computer. It goes off and on, but now it's back. Sorry.
No, we can hear you clear
Okay, good. So,
and see
yeah,
you
just
and think. Yeah, you have 2 minutes left. Just.
yes, and one slide. So
Oh, good.
yeah. So just to highlight also like the principle or the underlying thinking we have in the digital program and in Connect, that we are sort of we are not catering just for one audience, let's say. So like in the case of genomics, we really want to cover both research and healthcare, and also to bring together the data and expertise. So these are the sort of the pillars that we have for all actions under digital when it comes to health. So this was all from me, and I guess I was a bit shorter than 10 minutes.
Really,
So happy to answer questions later on. Thank you very much.
really in time. Thank you very much, Christina.
Thank you.
So, a small change in the plan because of some ailment in the next speaker. So we have to pass to the Q's and A's section for these 2 speakers first now. So I think we can show me the screen with, first of all, the online questions for you. We can come across, for example, Jerome, is SANTE planning how to link with infrastructures?
Indeed, I mean, this is something. So we do have, let's put it that way, we do have several infrastructures. For most of them, they typically have a specific focus, be it on a type of data or a specific community. So we obviously are building on this expertise, on this knowledge. On the other hand, what we're proposing is much broader. So it provides the possibility to have other data sharing infrastructures to take part in the EHDS framework. So this is probably the way this link can be established indeed. Not only building on their expertise, involving them for that matter in the implementation phase, but as well creating a specific pathway for them to be part of the infrastructure.
Salia, could you please elaborate a bit on because in the end we do see the intention of about aligning at high level, but the specificities of the linkage of how to liaise with the the plans, short-term, medium-term plans of SANTE. How could you elaborate a bit? What are your thoughts about that?
Yes, indeed. As I said in the beginning, we are discussing with SANTE all the time. We are really looking at what can Digital Europe program offer for EHDS, so that we are not, that the member states don't need to do some things which we have. For example, we are going to procure a middleware, and we have the data support center. So we are now, we have the chance also, now we are, since they are to be launched, to influence also these, like what kind of tools and capacities would be most helpful for health sector, and also for the EHDS pilots, not only for the infrastructures we are building under digital. But this takes time. Of course, EHDS is not, as a regulation, it's not yet finalized. We have the pilots. There is also a commitment to do a bit of funding also from Digital Europe program in the future to support the European health data space. So these are the synergies that we are currently discussing, and everything is really taking shape now. We don't have any, like, the actions are not yet there, but the discussions are ongoing. I hope I answered the question. Thank you.
So we do have in the room, while you put on screen online questions, Maria Luisa, please.
And this is Maria Luisa Lavitrano from the EOS Association. Have you planned already how to connect with the different EOS initiatives already ongoing through the project and through the EOS Association initiatives?
So we are also discussing with colleagues in charge of EOS, of course. So that this is part of the bigger picture, and part of so that there are the connections that can be done via the EHDS. Of course, we also bring infrastructures into the EHDS. So that's one conversation we are having. And of course, EOS is always there when it comes to, like, having the linkages of different infrastructures. Yes, of course. And as I said, we always have the angle of catering for research, but we are also have, like, from our point of view, we also have other stakeholders we want to support. Thank you.
And what about Digicent?
So, I mean, obviously we did have discussions with the relevant unit in DGRTD overlooking your work. At the same time, obviously, we engage with the research world more widely. By involving them in the consortium, we do have partners in common within EOSC and our pilot. More widely, we also work very closely with the member state, with the national agencies already providing data to researchers. So we also try to make sure to take into account the reality in the member states, in addition to what is done within our research infrastructures, or through our research project in RTD, or whatever colleagues in Connect are doing. So we have to bridge several initiatives. And sorry, you wanted to?
Yes, I have two questions, in fact, related to your presentation, Jerome. Sorry. Yes, I'm Jacques Demotte from Irene. So I have two questions related to the EHDS regulation. The first one is related to the fact that when I read the draft, I was surprised to see in the listing of what is considered as electronic health record, the research data, meaning the cohort data and the clinical trial data. So does this mean that in your mind the data sharing for cohort and clinical trial, the secondary use of research data for research purposes should go through the national health data access body, or is it possible to use research infrastructure to handle and to be able to share the data? Because these data are not strictly national data. They are, for instance, there are multinational cohort, there are multinational clinical trials, so there is no need to come back to the national nodes.
So thank you. So probably the first step is when we drafted the legal proposal, we try to be as broad as possible when it comes to the types of data that will be covered. We wanted to be ambitious, and we wanted to make sure that what we're proposing is relevant throughout. This is after regulations that will be applying for a considerable amount of time. So that's why we didn't try to limit the scope as in itself. When it comes to the data that you're mentioning, it will offer both possibilities. It is possible to use data sharing infrastructures. It is possible to have it done through national legislations. Now, as it is, the data holders that are contributing to, to, to this cohort that you're mentioning, by default, will need to comply with the law, will need to make this data known and available. What we also foreseeing is that for cohort data such as yours, we are creating the possibility for, if a coordinator has the authority to provide access to this data on behalf of, or take decisions on this data, to also be the entity to which the obligations that the rights of EHDS would apply. That is, they would make that available to the National Health Data Access Body on behalf of anybody who had contributed to this cohort. So they very much depends on the way the cohort is in itself is structured, or the entity is part of the cohort or structure, really.
So we've talked a lot. Yeah, Niklas Blomberg, Director of Elixir. Sorry for that. So we've talked a lot about the research. We haven't talked a lot about the innovation part of the Health Research and Innovation Cloud. And I think it'd be interesting to hear your views on that. It strikes me that, I mean, it's always sensitive to have private entities working on people's health data, but it's also an opportunity to create a sort of digital health industry in Europe. So it'd be interesting to hear your views on how the sort of research cloud can be used also for innovation purposes.
Sorry, I can talk about EHDS. When it comes to that's a very good question. And indeed, one of the purposes for which data could be made available through EHDS is for the development of innovative solutions, product services, benefiting individuals. This is something that we are foreseeing. And in practice, we also want to make sure that any IP rights or privileged from companies also not infringed as well. I want to make sure that when this data is made available, it's still it is not detrimental to private entities that are covered by the legislation.
Thank you, Jerome. May we go to the online questions again? Is the me they were aligned with the CEF building blocks? Someone is asking. I don't know what CEF actually stands for.
Yes, indeed. So because we are EID, e-translation, and others, these are the so-called self-building. They used to be called self-building blocks. So they are in there to help also with all possible applications, and the middleware is more for, like, for example, anonymization tools and other software, whatever is needed on top of what's already there as self-building blocks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Salia. Again, the questions from online. Again, for you, Jerome, I'm afraid, very popular today. The last step of the flowchart slide was reporting of results. As discussed in the first session, is the intention to provide feedback directly to the individuals whose data was used?
So as we have it in the legislation, it is more of a reporting of activities of the health data access body as a whole. So in terms of numbers of permits that have been issued, those that have been rejected as well, to understand if at times it wasn't made data was not made available, and on the results from the projects. At this stage, I think it would be very difficult to go down to individual level. Or at least we're not foreseeing. We're not. It doesn't mean that it could not be adopted by the health data access body, but not in the legislation.
But at the same time, my understanding of that is that there is a commitment on the, when a project is finalized, all the objects of the results of the output should be returned back. For example, enriching the data sets at origin, right? So have you, building on this, have you thought what could be the way forward? Because my understanding is in the pilot project is not a specific task on that, and that I think is rather critical.
So this idea of including enriched datasets, so dataset that would have been improved as part of the analysis that has with the data has been available. So when a specific permit has been issued, I think for us it is a way to just give back to contributing data holders and the community more widely. I think it will be a missed opportunity if what has been done within a specific access is not more widely shared and built upon, rather. And this is something we know other countries also looking into. I think this idea is also not to reinvent the wheel at each time. So that's why we include these specific provisions to benefit data holders and the community more widely.
Mm-hmm. Jack, please, a second.
Yes, I had another question because when I read the draft THDS, I read carefully the provision on anonymization. So the very good news is that the attempt to re-identify the data is prohibited by law. So this is very strong. The weak point is that there is no specific provision regarding the definition of anonymization. So it means that we keep the GDPR status, and in the GDPR, the definition of anonymization is not something that can be predicted, meaning that, for instance, if you go to the US, you can implement the HIPAA rule, and the procedure is something that is predictable. You know, if you perform this and this, you remove a certain number of items, then your data set can be shared. This is not the case so with the GDPR, meaning that it's not possible to predict because the risk of re-identification is dependent on the nature of the data. And so we miss this some sort of predictable procedure that help to anonymize the data. So do you think that there is space for improvement here, or we will have to keep this situation that is very cumbersome, that result in very complex procedure as was presented, and also that that result in a lot of cost, and who will pay for the cost related to the complexity of this legislation?
So when it comes to the EOS legislations, what was published is obviously what was proposed with the commissions, but as you could see, it also has the inclusion of several implementing and delegating acts, which is where you would see the specific details on aspects such as what you mentioned on data anonymization, but on other aspects such as what exactly do we foresee as sequencing environments, what type of technical requirements, specificities we will be proposing. So there's only that much that could have been proposed or included in the proposal, which is why there'll be further work developed to just clarify all those aspects, to formalize those. And this is where you will see perhaps those details.
Thank you, Jerome. A lot of eagerness on the European Health Data space. Let's welcome now Christina Kyriakopoulou. Thank you for joining us as scientific advisor.
And I'm sorry that I had to switch the order, but because I had a kind of a medical
No problem.
emergency.
No problem at all. Let me put the mic here.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you. So I want to thank you very much to the HealthyCloud coordinating team for for inviting us. It is very important. From the now, I will take you to the research world and the European activities and the framework programs, but it's very much appreciated from us as policy officer to have a direct interaction with the health research community, because all the actions that we do and we design in the programs, it has to align with the state of the art, and this comes from all of you, part of this consortium. So just to make take the last 10 years, what has happened, and with the notion looking back to the future. So of course, big data. Everything started since 2010 or so. The last 10, 12 years, we have seen in the different calls of proposals in health research a lot of different the effort to integrate data. Of course, we have asked that to integrate from different sources: clinical data, biological data, molecular data, public health research data. So all this, of course, the complexity of what we see in the big data world, it is reflected exactly in the discussions that you have in this consortium. And because, of course, we are talking about health, we are talking about humans. So everything is complex, and to solve diseases is very complex. And back, if I go, yes. Back in 2015, now, if I go back, we had a workshop again with the community, as we did for this consortium. And we brought again different initiatives. What does it mean, big data for health research? Big data for health research, it's not the same notion that we have for physics, of course, but it's high volume, high diversity, multi-source data, biological, clinical, environmental, lifestyle, data from large cohorts, new dynamic measurement and longitudinal approaches to data. So all of this is a complex system that one needs to operate. And of course, the first thing, if you want to collaborate across disciplines, because this was what very important in all the health research programs, we try to create this convergence between different disciplines. Clinical, basic researchers in the beginning, then IT and data scientists coming together in European infrastructures. Of course, then the bottom up, it is how we share data. Basically, all the challenges, they are coming around the discussion how we access data, how multinationally in Europe. This has been really the case, and the challenges in the different research consortia. And of course, in the European Union, in the research frameworks, since 2011, there were large efforts to support personalized medicine with a broad sense, from prevention, personalized prevention, to personalized therapy, but to new models in the healthcare system. And of course, the sense of personalized medicine is again the big data and the different diverse integrating of different sources, and of course IT and new AI, artificial intelligence tools. And of course, also at the European Union, since back 2016, we had set up very important and global initiatives for allowing funding bodies to collaborate together, fund innovative research in order to prepare us for the next and new and emerging epidemics. And that started already in 2016. And in the infectious diseases world, the discussion of sharing data, but of course epidemiological data and all, the need came already since then. Of course, in 2018, all the member states, they committed to, led by our colleagues in DigiConnect, to the 1 Million Genomes Initiative. Of course, Europe is very strong in genomics research. Traditionally, we have very strong infrastructures. So there again, the same challenges: how we share data, how we access data, the different verification of data, and all of this is discussed in all these initiatives. And of course, we have the very important element in our framework programs, the European Strategic Forum of Research Infrastructures, where the member states are sitting. And since 2007, 2008, I think BBMRI and Elixir was one of the first infrastructures that were set for life sciences, but of course, after that, it became very essential for different biomedical research. And as you see in red, these are the health research infrastructures that are related to health data intensive research, and they are very essential in several European projects, and they facilitate a lot, particularly Elixir, ECRAN, also the brains, the infrastructure for brain research. So different communities, the infrastructures, and the facilitation of the different tools to allow this multidisciplinary research, at the core of which for modern biomedical research is the data again, has been supported very strongly. Here I want to give an example also. Since 2014, this relates to registries, patient registries on rare diseases. The Joint Research Center of the European Union has set up this platform, started to set up since 2014, a platform to have an interoperable way, semantic interoperable, fair way, with specific tools for pseudo-anonymization of patient data to support different clinical studies and registries, set up registries, different types of registries on rare disease research. And this took some time to be developed, but now, since last year, since the middle of this year, it has become really operational. There are very nice tools about pseudo-anonymization and how to securely share data. This, for the moment, is registers for rare disease, and they correlate with the European reference networks. And no, this is a repetition. Okay, sorry, I'm going back. Yes. And now I want to refer also to the Innovative Medicine Initiative. This was a very, very important alliance partnership between the public European Union and the EFPA, the European Pharmaceutical Federation Society of the Pharmaceutical Companies. And since 2010, again, around that area, a very important set of collaborative projects between industry, academicians, clinicians started. For example, a lot of them, they dealt with how to optimize, standardize, and be able to share electronic health records, or how we standardize the data, which data models in observational and pragmatic clinical trials and cohort research. So this was and of course also, I want to say, in 2018, we had the first pilot to set up the basis and the strategic thinking behind the European Open Science Cloud. And a lot of open access policies came into place. And that was around that 2016 and forward. And when I just want to clarify what we mean in health research open access, because it relates to personal data, we mean as open as possible, as restricted as necessary. This is the format that we are using in health research, and this is in our European consortium. And in this kind of, back in 2018, in this kind of environment, with all these important initiatives in different data sources, we discussed with different consortia and of course, in constant contact with the stakeholders here. We decided to have a workshop in March 2018 to discuss about the potential challenges and opportunities of establishing a health research and innovation cloud to be accessible by health researchers throughout Europe. So the analysis, of course, after that, it came a position paper. And this position paper came from more than 50 representatives of 50 European collaborative projects, but also with a close collaboration with other DGs, DG Connect, with a lot of ICT and infrastructure contribution, Innovative Medicines Initiative, DG SANTE about public health research. So these were the first the observations and the needs what potentially could a health research and innovation cloud would support or would facilitate. And if I see the verification and good practices and guidelines, of course, it is a very important element. Of course, also a very important element is the proper training of the next generation of medical researchers, but also data scientists, because health research has particularities. And in order to do this cross-disciplinary, which can bring breakthroughs, you need to have this kind of training on top of the data aspects training. And since then, of course, if we go here and we have the challenges we identified after this workshop, a cold topic. And what we asked, what are the challenges that are identified by the community, is the need to make any EU research health fair ecosystem, fair measures. It's becoming more and pressing by all these different communities, all these different diseases. And we need to integrate and to analyze this health data coming from different sources in order also not only to make sense of the data, but in order to bring the disciplines together to work, because it's essential for modern, for innovative health research. And of course, the security and privacy aspects, it was very much a discussion in all these fora. And then we come here to the winning project, the HealthyCloud, which took the task to follow on these recommendations, and of course, based on the novelties, on the more progress in different initiatives. And then if I go, and I will finish with this, of course, COVID came after, and then we had a lot of actions about the infectious disease and emerging epidemics preparedness. So, and the data sharing discussions, and that was a good platform in order to help the European Union to respond on that. And we supported a substantial amount of new projects, cohorts for COVID-19, longitudinal cohorts, diagnostics, therapies. I don't remember all of this, but also essential element to this project, it was sharing of data, of course. I don't say this is obvious, but I want to refer to you. This is a report that came out in March 2022 with a series of workshops that started in the second half of 2021 with all the European projects and infrastructures, European infrastructures that were involved in these projects. And what was the conclusion now at this moment? What is the need? Key recommendations. We still continue to need to improve and coordinate the implementation of FAIR, promote link between individual level data and metadata, again, support the enrichment of the different participant, individual patients, records data with more different types of data, and of course, develop ethical, responsive governance and guidelines. So basically, coming back to the future, we are coming again to the similar needs that the community needs. So, and I would like to thank for the consortium HealthyCloud for sharing the first draft of the strategic agenda. And I understand that there are so many needs in the health research community. And there is a need for open access. There is a need for specific low-hanging deliverables, like simple guidelines, fair guidelines for health research, depending, of course, on the different types of data. And I thought the European infrastructures, particularly the genomic evolution, has contributed and have delivered a lot of guidelines, but also these COVID-19 related collaborative projects have delivered, personalized medicine projects have delivered. But I think we need to make a synthesis of that, because as funders, I mean, simply, the applicants, they are asking us when they make applications, simple as this, what are the standards? What are the guidelines? How we can follow FAIR principles, which has been a requirement and the principle behind the OSC already since 2018. Of course, the FAIR principles is something innovative, and the communities, by developing the state-of-the-art research and infrastructures, they are developing also the standards for verification. So I think there are some low-hanging fruits where the HealthyCloud could support, and I see a lot of importance. And the other thing, a lot of importance, how to tellurate health research needs to open access whole vision of the OSC, but tellurated for this specific community because there are particularities and very important specificities. And of course, what I want to say, the European Health Data space has created a very important policy initiative, has created a lot of momentum. We have heard in different fora, the clinicians, the public health experts, epidemiologists, they were so excited about this. They are so excited. It's not still a law. They are continuously very excited. And we made a very strong effort. And I think Jerome also, who was working in RTD at that time, with my colleague Jana Makendonska and my head of unit also, Carmen La Plaza, that we made an effort to direct the state-of-the-art experience from the research world and the research infrastructures to these pilots for the secondary use of the European Health Data Space. So several of you here, you are connected with this kind of pilots for the secondary use. So it is very important. Research has been the leading area in health research, where several of the challenges that are discussed in the European Health Data Space have been debated, and solutions have been, some have been provided. So it is only natural that the research world will give a feedback in order to have a pragmatic development of the European Health Data Space. And here I stop, and sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry
Very clear messages. Thank you. We may have just time for one question maybe in the room for Christina. There is one here. Irene, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Irene from Cienzano. Thank you very much for this very nice presentation. So basically in Cienzano, we lead the HRIC, Population Health Information Research Infrastructure project. And as you mentioned, there's a need for health research, there's a need for open data. So we have an idea of making available synthetic data.
Yes.
And I'm quite interested in the platform that you mentioned from the JRC that provides pseudonymized data on rare diseases. Is this, can you talk a bit more about this platform?
Perhaps I will send you a link later. There are some training workshops that are planned in December. What I know is there is a very nice pseudo-anonymization tools which allows also to create virtual cohorts. So basically in different locations, of course, if the different clinicians, they register in this platform, of course, then you can identify and you can create virtual cohorts. And I guess the idea is to have also to support some federated learning in the future and artificial intelligence, because particularly for rare disease, the multinational dimension is essential to have the numbers that are needed of patients to make efficacy and safety assessments.
Thank you very much, Christina.